Welcome back to ETBFSI BFSI Digital Conclave. Moving ahead, I am in this session going to talk about how the BFSI companies are actually expanding their platforms. The theme of obviously this session is BFSI 2025 strengthening digital connectivity, and topic of this panel discussion is BFSI expanding with platforms. As we have seen, the BFSI companies are far more aggressively partnering with tech companies, fintechs, insurtechs, deep techs, and what are they actually doing is creating different models like SaaS, BaaS, or even platforms. And they are also managing a lot of embedded finance and so many activities. In fact, globally, a lot of banks have started hiring people like chief platform officer, chief sustainability officer, chief API officer, deal with such platforms. So in today's session, let me take honor to introduce you to the speakers that I have with me who are going to talk about expanding platforms. My first speaker for this panel discussion is Mr. Vijay Kumar, CEO and Principal Officer, Digit Insurance. Mr. Kumar, glad to have you.
Hello.
My next speaker is Mr. Sandeep Bhardwaj, CEO, Digital Broking IIFL Securities Limited. Mr. Bhardwaj, glad to have you.
Thank you, Amol.
My next speaker is Mr. Archit Gupta, founder and CEO, ClearTax. Mr. Gupta, glad to have you.
Very nice to be here.
Thank you. And my next speaker is Mr. A. Balakrishnan, Director, Google Cloud India. Mr. Balakrishnan, glad to have you.
Glad to be of presence here and listen to all the experts.
Thank you. Thank you so much, gentlemen. So moving ahead, let me ask a common question first, and then perhaps I will get into the specific questions. So platform has become one of the integral part of the BFSI ecosystem. There are different platforms that the BFSI companies are dealing with. So my question is specifically, how are BFSI companies partnering with platforms? How are they actually leveraging platforms? And I will start with you, Mr. Kumar, first.
Yeah, thank you, Amol. And good afternoon, all the viewers. The BFSI industry had managed to maintain a healthy growth over the years. They not only managed to capture a huge market share, but also changed India's landscape pertaining to their domain to a large extent. However, if you talk about insurance sectors in particular, I think despite all this, the insurance penetration in the country still remains very low, which is at 4.2% currently. So the question is, how do we scale and how do we ensure that we as individual players or as industry can scale quickly? I feel this can only happen through a collaborative model. And technology will be one of the biggest factor that will lead this collaborative change. Insurance as an industry is pivoting and working on how it can be transformed using fintech solutions. Thus, the mantra I think for us is to go digital and reach out to the untapped market as much as possible. What these platform today bring is on the table is simplifications, agility, faster turnaround time, and I feel the industry that talks about penetration, this decade will be the decade of tech-led collaboration, and many of these small and big platforms, part of BFS sector will actually lead it. So, and this insured tech actually is there to help on both sides, on the sales as well as the service side to the insurance industry.
Okay, noted your points, Mr. Kumar. I think valuable points here. Let me move my focus to broking and get some perspective from Mr. Bhardwaj. Mr. Bhardwaj, what do you think?
No, I think Mr. Vijay has already spoke about few important points. The digital world, when we look at what digital is making, so digital largely do two things. One, digital is all about habit forming. One, two is digital also makes people lazy. Now, how organizations are can provide these two solutions? This is it means that we need to work on a customer experience which gives a ease of execution and providing all possible solutions at a one platform. Because if the customer has to venture out at a various app and find a solution, it becomes difficult and it becomes disoriented. So for a consumer, all preferred app become where they get all the possible solutions at one place. And that is only possible by leveraging. And previously, when, today, Open API has become a big platform. Earlier, this kind of solutions were not available. So partnering with any fintech, partnering with any organization was not that possible. After Open API being placed, it is very easy to collaborate with any fintech or any organization and use their solution to provide on your platform. And digital is all about collaborating each other's strength. There's nothing proprietary, So if you leverage each organization's strength and provide those solutions at your platform, it becomes win-win situation, not only for consumer as well as for organization. And that is what I think, leveraging platform technology is all about.
Okay, noted your points, Mr. Bhardwaj. Mr. Gupta, I would like to take your views now.
Right. So Amol, as the esteemed panel has mentioned, like leapfrogging changes by tech in insurance sector and in the broking sector, we are seeing like we operate in 2-3 main areas, right? One is the taxes themselves, which is an area which has been completely digital end to end, given the massive push by the government. And I just want to talk about the Open APIs element, which was mentioned, and couple of other elements which is leading to this massive digitization and push. Obviously, COVID-19 also has led to a lot of adoption in the BFSI sector. So the few places we see this is invoicing, payments, taxes, credit. Like these are the 3-4 areas that we touch, and we have seen change in behavior, change in penetration. So one is the ask from the Indian regulator itself to say like now businesses need to go digital, and every invoice has now become electronic in the form of e-invoicing. Every tax document is now digital with the digital taxes, which we have seen in the form of GST, direct taxes, indirect taxes, and so on and so forth. And the third element what we are seeing in the form of Open APIs, like obviously UPI has been a transformative revolution. So IPOs and everything, people going public, all of that is being driven a lot by UPI and changing behavior. But what we see also is the new frameworks in the form of OCEN and other things coming online, which are helping us provide, for example, digital credit to businesses on our platform. Like we are the businesses directly on platform or CA firms and what have you. So what we are seeing is a lot of transformation due to this, due to the India stack, due to the Open API system that India has embarked on for the last decade. And as we leapfrog into the next decade, all of these are available technologies for financial services and fintechs to use. And us being a fintech, we use like a lot of these APIs, and that's what we have seen transformation and change in. And like 10 years ago, there was no digital invoicing, no digital taxes. Even 3-4 years ago, right? Like now it's completely digital. Like 2 billion invoices, for example, are completely digital. Now that system of record is being used for digital credit, digital payments, and all of that. So invoices for companies over 500 crores have to mandatorily have a B2C QR code dynamically generated, which is linked to the UPI system and so on and so forth, which we provide. So we've seen like this complete change. So from our vantage point, like the change is rapid and galloping. So what we are thinking is this will impact in the next decade, will completely, people will be asking the question like now what is remaining offline instead of what is going online. So those are my thoughts.
No, I think good thoughts and a good question. I think you give me a good question. Maybe I will take it in some other session or something. It's a valid point. So, Mr. Balakrishnan, I will come to you now. You heard the other panelists, insurance perspective. You got tech plus taxation plus tax perspective from Mr. Gupta. You got a broking perspective. So, my question to you is the same, but I will also tweak it slightly. So, the first part of the question is, how do you see the platforms are changing the BFSI? And as Mr. Gupta mentioned a lot about Open API, my question to you, because that is an integral part when you speak about the platforms. So how is Open API actually empowering and taking BFSI to the next level and expanding its reach, according to you?
Thanks for the question, Mr. Amol. I just wanted to put some data points into perspective, given that our esteemed panel has, general insurance and has, the securities and capital markets representation, along with, the taxes representation as well, right? We are talking of 2x growth in insurance premiums in the next 5 years. So insurance premium is supposed to grow to about 228 billion in 2026, right? Similarly, when you look at the capital markets, we are talking of assets under management of mutual fund and equities to reach almost 1.2 trillion in 2026, right? From a 468 billion today. So if you look at the growth aspects, right, the amount of growth which is going to happen not only here but also in terms of, say, MSME credit. Now, how are all these markets supposed to grow? When you get credit, when the unbanked or the underbanked folks get credit, when the underinsured or the uninsured folks get access to insurance, that's when you see a growth in payment, digital payment transactions, right? And that's where this open APIs come in. When you expect a 4x growth in digital payment transactions, right, it's just all the way going up from 43 billion today to almost 150 billion. That's the reason why, Mr. Archit Gupta mentioned the matter about OCEN and ONDC, which are supposed to be what UPI did in 5 years, right? So since UPI got launched, since demonetization in 5 years, OCEN is supposed to do the same thing along with embedded finance in 3 years' time. Let's just take an example of GPay, right? GPay, we are talking of 1.3 billion as the transaction value every day on a dollar term. Number of transactions per month, 1.5 billion. Now, how are we going to ever scale up to these requirements? We can only scale up to these requirements provided we have open banking APIs. If we need to get to financial inclusion, we will need open banking open APIs to enable every element of the financial markets, whether it is banking, whether it is insurance, whether it's capital markets, whether it is taxes, mutual funds, and that's the only way this can grow. Each element connected with an API, and each API contributing to the business outcomes, which is rupees or dollars, whatever it may be, which can then cumulatively lead to growth of every institution which is connected to it.
Okay, detailed points here, Mr. Balakrishnan, and valid data points. Very supportive one. So thanks, gentlemen, for sharing your opening remarks on the topic. Now, let me get some specific questions to you, and maybe I will ask with you, Mr. Kumar. So we have seen a great revolution, specifically in last 2 years in the general insurance sector. Before that, also a lot of companies came into the picture. In fact, we have more general insurance companies than the life insurance companies now. But specifically in last 2 years, a lot of insurtech companies entered into this space. And I'm sure you have already benefit of launching as a new company just few years back, and you must have done a lot of digitalization there. What kind of partnerships are you having with the new platforms, maybe insurtech companies, or also with fintechs, or maybe just soft tech companies or something like that, to achieve your goals? Which can be anything, maybe strengthening distribution, tapping different markets, or whatever.
Yeah, thank you, Amol. So, non-life business, by nature, even in the earlier time also was sourced generally through the partners only. But with the invent of technology, I think everything has moved from physical to digital, and things have changed significantly. Similarly, we as a new company, from a day one, we are 100% on cloud, and we decided to not to have any physical intervention in any of the, whether the service side or the distribution side. And so as of now, we have quite a few large number of API integrations with our agents and brokers. There are a lot of there are web aggregators also there where we have integration with them. Then you have OEM business where I think almost all the OEMs, they have a API integration with most of the insurance companies. So this is on the sales side, on the distribution side. On the service side, I think there are significant progress has already been made. You have starting from the repair, vehicle repair companies like Go Mechanic. You have claim estimation companies like Autodex, roadside assistance companies. You have on the health side TPAs and wellness. So there's a whole lot of service providers and partners that we have both on the sales and with the service side, who are partnered with us for better customer, satisfaction. Aggregator partners have become big in the industry, and these partnership today aren't just limited to the aggregation alone. There are a lot of platforms today that are providing value chains such as on the underwriting side, risk management, and customer experience side. I think so. There's a lot of value addition happening from various partners. Best thing about this platform is that value that customer is getting at the best price, minimum price, possible price. All the portals that we see today are able to compare, give comparative pricing to the customers, comparative features of the products. So this is a great service to the customers, and customer in one click can decide, take a decision through which is the insurance company it going to rely on. So similarly on the OEM side, I think OEM brokers are there, who have evolved and they have innovated a lot of things on the policy issuance and the claim side. So apart from that, we also have collaboration with the e-commerce sites and travel portals, etc. Like Make My Trip, etc. So this is how things are, started with us, and we are definitely much better placed, compared to many players in the industry on this in this regard.
All right, Mr. Kumar, let me get here a security or a broker's perspective now in far more detail. So, Mr. Bhardwaj, my question to you is, how are you at your company using platforms to expand yourself? Because now a lot of wealth tech companies are coming up. The millennials and Gen Z are investing heavily into the market, and the data, if we look at the IIFL data, is quite interesting. In fact, when you look at the investment, which simply means that the investments in the capital market from the domestic market are going high. So to increase your strength, to shape up your company, how are you partnering with and expanding yourself with different platforms? What do you see the changes that is happening specifically in your business with the help of platforms?
So, if I give you the perspective of the industry, because it's been most talked about industry in post-COVID. So during 17-19, if I look at those 2 years, on an average 30-40 lakh demat account used to get open every year. And post-COVID, when the COVID happened, this number moved to 1.5 crores. And post that, this number is moving towards 2 crores in financial year 22. So from 30-40 lakh accounts 4 years back, this number is now moving to 2 crores. If I correctly remember, it took 7 years to add 1 crore demat account from 2011 to 2018. And then it took 3 years to add another 1 crore account. And practically it took only 10 months to add 1 crore, another demat account. So 3 crores demat account got open in the 10 years, out of which last 1 crore got added only in 10 months. So that is what the rapid growth the industry has seen. And but it is not only about digital and technology. How equities are offering much better, asset as an instrument. So if you look at our GDP, if your real GDP forecast, even if you look at that is 9% by now, and our GDP is healthy and growing significantly. And if I add inflation over it, so 9 plus 5, it becomes quite close to 14-15%. So as a corporate industry is growing by 14-15%. So this becomes a decent return for if corporate has to grow by 14-15%, equity has potential to give you that return. If I look at last 10 year CAGR, equities have given 13-14% of CAGR in last 10 years. So equity as a whole, as an instrument, which has become more prominent, looking at small saving schemes in last 20 years have become 13-14%, has become now 5 to 6%, which is hardly even beating inflation. So when you have other instruments which was giving a much safer return earlier, now those instruments are losing its relevance from a growth point of view. So equity has becomes one of the key asset class which has potential to give you long-term wealth creation. Now digital is enabling it. Now how digital is enabling it? Earlier it was a complete complex infrastructure from account opening till even making a decision where to invest. That was completely complex. So a normal customer, it became always that equity is far-fetched from my scheme of things. If I go to equities, I'll make a loss. Now those gone are those days, because what digital has done and what platforms have done, what platforms have given information at a right in your hand. So it has enabled customer to make decision, because all information is available right there on your in your hand. So whether it is making a trading or making a investment, being a customer, you are well informed. And even if you look at India as demographics, now 33% of the Indians are normally are millennials, out of which 46% contributes to workflows, and 70% of the contributed household income comes from millennials. If we look at their upbringing and if their knowledge, they are far more educated and leverage social media to the core. So the information availability through digital as well as execution of that information through digital platforms have become quite relevant. So the expansion, which was earlier limited to the tier 1 or at max tier 2 kind of cities, have gone down to tier 3, tier 4. Today, you find a person residing at a remotest place in India is talking about opening a Demat account, and he can open Demat account on a click of a button. So it's gone are the days when it used to take a 3 days, 4 days, 5 days to open an account, and then to fund transfer, because then you have to issue a check, and then the check used to get clear. Now everything happens on a click of a button. And I think we already spoke about Open API, how Open API are leveraging and delivering a good experience in terms of collaborating with the digital world, where you leverage all services available, whether it is onboarding, discoverability, and or providing information. So this all becomes quite easy for a customer, or becomes easy for consumer to absorb and play and make a decision. Well, that is what the big changes happened in BFSI sector, whether it comes to broking or insurance or any other sector. If I look at Archit is there. So recently we tied up with the text providing company only. I never thought of in 2015 or 2010 that on my platform I'll be selling a text filing. Right. Now it becomes quite easy for a customer to come and file a text. I never thought of that people will be buying a mutual fund. Because mutual fund was a different industry altogether. Insurance was a different industry altogether. And broking was perceived to be the black screen, where the people will go, they need to buy a laptop, a PC, and install some additional RAM, etc., etc. Now everything is being, consolidated in one app where you can not only trade in equities, commodities, currency, buying a mutual fund, doing a SIP, filing a text, buying a gold, digital gold, or whatnot, insurance as a whole. Buying a general insurance to health insurance to term plan, every information is available. But how this information is coming from? Though at a front end, for a consumer point of view, everything looks easy. But if you look at behind, this API world is beautifully managing the latency, beautifully managing the services, and the customer without facing any issue is able to leverage all those services. That is what is the beautiful nature of this digital. That's what precisely I say that one of the reason of being digital is that you become digitally lazy. And if you have to really provide the services, everything, then the best thing is to collaborate in the fintech world rather than keep building your proprietary, because we have seen this culture. Most of us have seen this culture till 2010, hiring a big fat IT team and keep building the solutions which never went live. I've seen so many projects were kept on hold and prolonged for ages time. Now, if I look at, I have a problem statement, I'll think about solution is readily available. My tech team will talk to their tech team. I think a couple of weeks, the solution is live on my platform. So that's where I think the industry is moving, Amol, and we are leveraging to the core. So if I look at IIFL, we're thinking a little step forward in creating a mobile app platform to provide an integrated digital experience, which not only enabled discovery, because in broking, discoverability is a big challenge. After opening account, people are confused in, that what to do, and they become directionless. So discoverability, onboarding, and engagement. Then servicing becomes, other services like do fund transfer, taking a payout, those become servicing. Else, if you are able to unbox the discoverability, that becomes, that solves the problem. So I think and technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning provides you a lot of data crunch. And nowadays, cloud technology, you can have humongous data, you can channelize that data and simplify that information for a customer, and can provide him in a simplest manner, which helps him to take decisions. So that is what I think, and also to build hyper personalized services. So I have never seen or never envisaged, 10 years back, that my broking or my banking can be personalized as per my need. Maybe we used to, nobody think nowadays, Netflix, people compare financial BFSI from Netflix and Amazon kind of world. So how we are targeting, who's our competitors? We always refer to that, when you open Netflix, you feel that they are capturing your behavior. That is what the BFSI is heading to. We talk about risk personas, client persona, where the client behavior is mapped and through data, and services and solutions are being offered, which is basis mitigating my risk. So it is a pretty interesting world which is emerging, and I personally see, that broking is a huge scope, and maybe 2025, 26, I see DMAT becomes, or broking becomes, one of the key financial product once for a customer who started earning.
Right. I think detail one, in fact, you answered my next question also about 25, 26. A very detailed one, Mr. Bharadwaj. I picked up maybe 2, 3 technologies, and I can see that how the platform is actually empowering you, the whole platform model. You mentioned about API, which we discussed, then AI, then cloud. So my question then, let me bring Mr. Balakrishnan here and ask something specific about the technology. So you heard Mr. Balakrishnan talking the players about the platform. So from the perspective of scalability, because that's what will happen now going ahead, right? So scalability, reliability, simplicity, and at the same time, managing the risks also. What are the new age technologies or new age systems, will enable BFSI companies, to do their job far more seamlessly?
Yeah, thanks, Amol. I think Mr. Sandeep Bharadwaj actually spoke for all of us, in terms of the end-to-end view of how platforms are helping FSI, right? So if I look at the entire industry and divide it into 3 parts, right? So one is on the customer side, the second is on what we call as the internal operations, right, the organization side, and the third is essentially how do we really manage with respect to the productivity and other elements of the organizations. So from a scale perspective, today, customer onboarding, customer acquisition, there are enough technologies available from the cloud provider side, which can help you put up, customer data platforms in a very simple manner, does not take ages, as people already mentioned, and gets you onboarded with new customers. Right now, again, the amount of data which is available, the amount of AI, which is AI ML offerings which are available to really align you to get better conversions from a customer, onboarding and acquisition perspective. Next comes the customer engagement piece of it, right? Now, the customer engagement piece of it is, if you can use voice, if you can use video, if you can use text, and align it to the customer's personal needs. When I say personal needs, it could be a vernacular medium that he or she is looking for. It could be a type of interaction on the social media which they are looking for. So the customer engagement in tune to what the customer is looking for, I think that again is something which can be easily done. I mean, there is NLP, models which are available where the voice is almost like a human interaction, assistive voice, right? So, and that genuinely people feel as if they are talking to a human voice, and you can get a lot of processes actually improved, on the basis of that. So when we talk of customer experience, we are talking of experience in terms of claims. Example, in insurance, the claims which are there. So if you can add your ML into the claim side, if you can add ML into the underwriting side, right, where you can do straight through processing of a lot of operations, when you automate all of that, what happens is that you improve operational efficiencies and bring about significant cost benefits. So not only does it improve the customer experience, it also improves your internal operating efficiencies. If you can just, extract from documents which are available, and India is a country with a lot of documents. While I know that a lot of digitization has already happened, but if you can extract with a certain amount of accuracy, right, 70%, 80% accuracy, and you can put that and make that available, that set of data available for the management of the customer, as well as cross sell, upsell, and a whole lot of other interactions which you can have with the customer. That is automation which we are talking about, which removes a lot of, if I may say so, right, inefficiencies in the engagement with the customer. So as long as your workforce is finding it very productive to service a customer and turn them around or keep them happy or increase upsell and cross sell, you also have a very happy organization, right, at the end of the day. So and then when you add all of this to external APIs, so if Digit has as I rightly said, right, if they are tying up with, just hypothetically saying, a delivery provider or a food delivery provider, and they're selling a small insurance package, right, for that particular transaction, all that is possible today only because of this open API world. Now at the end of the day, the governance also has to be there in terms of not just the transaction, right? It also needs to mean something for the customer at the back end. Now, none of us will have an idea of the scale. Mr. Bhardwaj himself admitted that a couple of years back, before COVID, where the retail market for investors were, and where is it today, right, 2 years down the line. Now, if on top of it, you're going to add tax filing from Mr. Archit Gupta for it, if you're going to add a Digit insurance offering for the same set of customers, you can be sure that what you're having is an exponential growth in the number of transactions, and that is not possible today from a, if I may use the word, an on-premises perspective. You get limited from an infrastructure perspective, you get limited from an application modernization perspective, and you get limited from the scalability perspective. So if you're looking at elasticity, if you're looking at the modernization of your applications, then application modernization, how are you going to use a multi-cloud approach to really put the best of breed applications for all your customers? And sometimes they could be intermediaries, right? They just need not be customers. It's like say an X bank selling a life insurance solution from a Y insurance company, selling a general insurance from a Z insurance company, and at the same time selling mutual funds for, say, IIFL, just hypothetically example, right? That network of digital intermediaries which is enabled will need a cloud-like infrastructure to really grow. And then one very big element of all this, right? Financial transactions require what is called as security and reliability. And the one thing I just want to leave as a message for all of everybody out here, right? When you look at your own personal Gmail, how many times have you been subject to phishing attacks? You might just want to think about that aspect of it. Otherwise, ransomware and phishing are prevalent all over the world. I'm just talking about security, right? So when cloud providers solve security at scale, okay, and they have the resiliency to take care of outages, whether it is geographically seismic zones, or whether it is the network, whether it is the security layers, I think a lot of the consumers are in good hands when they need this robustness, scale, if the resiliency and the security to complete and get elements of all these transactions going.
Okay, valid points, Mr. Balakrishnan. So Mr. Gupta, I wanted to tell you something very interesting now. Whole the BFSI ecosystem is talking about platforms, and they're, like Mr. Bhardwaj said, how the taxation can be seamless while on the app. And whole the BFSI companies are talking about providing Swiggy experience, Zomato experience, or Netflix like an experience. What kind of pressure do you see on the platforms? How the platforms are evolving? Like ClearTax, the platform, how is it evolving, and what kind of actually the demand that the BFSI companies are are coming to you? What kind of demand there do you see from the BFSI companies?
Right. Great question, Amol. I think there's a complete transformation that we are observing, right? Like one example I would share is we we went from an app or a web app or an app mobile app company to additionally becoming an API company, for example, right? What that means is today when we look at the ecosystem, right? Brokerage apps, etc. May want to give the customer experience where the customer is sitting, right? Like the example uh, Sandeep gave, right? Like it is. So our business then becomes an API business, and then after that, like the demand and how the scale comes is completely dependent on uh, which business is being served. Another example I'll give is which we find very fascinating is on the businesses side when we serve large enterprise and what have you. We earlier started with the thesis that they will just use our cloud, and over time it has completely transformed into like APIs, because as we have started serving e-commerce businesses, as we started serving like D2C customers, D2C businesses which serve consumers directly, they are very interested in doing everything with APIs rather than coming onto a GUI, logging onto it, because they are seeing massive scale up. Like if we like just give an example, if we serve like a business which is working on Shopify, they want to like create invoices dynamically on the fly when the customer is being sold at that point. They don't want to go create invoices manually later on, which, by the way, businesses were doing pre-COVID, which businesses were doing when the regulation was like paperwork is okay. Now that has all completely changed. And our business, frankly, went from like being an application business to an API and a platform business. So that is one example. The second example which we see is that like more and more like the the entire ecosystem, the entire fintech ecosystem is becoming like the boundaries between application, customer ownership, and APIs is blurring. Many businesses are realizing that being an API provider is actually very good business because the infrastructure we built for ourselves is very painful and difficult to build, to scale it up, to have like data platforms, to like make it functional for millions of users is a tough skill. And now that can be that monetization can come from another party, and so you become a third party technology provider instead of just a first party application provider, and vice versa. As you attract customers and you're scaling, certain other people like a mutual fund house or a brokerage house or what have you start to provide you their APIs to you, and you start to use them. So I think that this complete transformation is happening, and we are seeing this across different fintechs, right? Like today Digit may have an API which is relevant to the SMB customers we are serving, and we may just decide to like, hey, can we interface with your APIs? And we have seen this with many credit providers who are API first right now, and they're obviously also waiting for clarity on the OCEN framework or what have you. And UPI is obviously completely API based. So I think this change is very rapid, and it's happening as we speak, where businesses are figuring out the boundaries of where they want to be API companies, where do they want to be platforms, where do they want to attract customers directly. And all of this is like evolving very rapidly in the fintech sector, in the BFSI sector, right? Like the entire new bank proposition is based on open bank APIs from various banks. We are providing many APIs which banks provide as a customer experience on our apps, right? Like to the CA firms and the small businesses that we serve. So it's evolving very rapidly, and for the next 6 to 7 years, I think it will be very dynamic. Like which companies will end up as infrastructure companies, which will end up as app companies, and both, right? Like so that's like our experience on this journey.
Okay. Meaningful perspective from all of you, and it's a great learning for the viewers. I'm sure they will enjoy this a lot in terms of what is actually happening with the platforms in the BFSI sector. I'm still, I think, left with 2 to 3 minutes, but I will take one last question to all of you, and I would like you to maybe finish in 40 to 50 seconds if you can. So the question to all of you is, considering the major developments, collaborations, partnerships, integration happening with the BFSI and the platforms, how do you see the future of BFSI and the platforms maybe in next 4 to 5 years? Mr. Bhardwaj touched about 2025 to 2026 some time back. So if we take the goal of 2025, because that is the theme of the event, 2025 digital strengthening digital connectivity, how do you see the partnerships with the platforms and the BFSI companies shaping up? How do you see the future of BFSI with the platforms in 2025? I will start with you, Mr. Kumar.
The whole innovation that is happening in non-life side is actually on the distribution side only. And for a company to scale up, I think you have to depend on the type of distribution that is available, and whether the distribution is whether we have a collaborated, it is possible to collaborate with that distribution partners. Today, platforms accounts for around 15% of our business. This, of course, is growing at a very fast pace because this whole concept of the platforms actually has come into this this insurance industry only few years back. So I see a great opportunity here, for insurance company to grow business, because for us to reach and scale up the business and reach in a remotest possible areas, I think without this it is really difficult. Second, the whole set of customers, the wide the customer base that you can access as an insurance company, I think is only possible with these platforms. Today, Policy Bazaar, for that matter, can service a client, right in the village, remote in the Kashmir, to Assam, to anywhere in the country. So which probably with through the traditional distribution, I think it was really impossible. And second, on the service side, I think because it is not our choice, the way the technology is evolving and the way the customer expectations are evolving, looking at their experience in the other sectors, banking and telecom and other sectors, I think their expectation will drive the insurance companies to go for collaboration with the fintech. So I see a great future. You are talking about 26. I would say maybe in next 2 years, 3 years, I think whole lot of collaboration will happen on the artificial intelligence side. For example, in our case, pre-enrollment inspection already it is AI based. Okay, there is automated approvals happening and inspection happening. So similar thing is happening in claims also. There is open API integration we have done, for our travel products, where trip delay, where there is a delay in the flight and automatically the claim is triggered. This whole thing is integrated with the service provider from the airline sides. So I think a lot of development are happening, and it is inevitable. This change is inevitable, and it is going to happen.
Okay, Mr. Bhardwaj.
I think I already touched upon Amol, but I see so today in broking point of view, we are still under 4% penetration. And I see huge scope. India, if India is growing and India is a force to reckon with, and everybody believes in India's growth story. And if you look at developed countries' penetration in equities, or developing countries' penetration in equities, we are nowhere near to that. And if we double from here, the markets are going to be unbelievable numbers. So with a 4% penetration, the numbers everybody's crazy is going crazy all about. So 25, 26, I see this becomes a primary financial product for every consumer in India. And digitally we spoke, and we move from transactionally digital to behaviorally digital. So that is a big tactical shift which is going to happen, where today maybe digitally sounds attractive because we are able to execute we are able to execute or perform certain actions, but still it is not inculcated in the behavior of a consumer. But with the shift which is happening by every passing month or a quarter or year, it is getting deep rooted in behavior. That's where the company started talking about NLPs and the customer persona and all. That creates a very interesting space for BFSI sector leveraging technology. And it is going to be very interesting because we are in a today, I think Archit talked about We are into platform-driven company as of now, but open API, I think slowly, gradually, every organization is turning into open API organization. The large problem, most organization has a cost of acquisition. But the biggest problem is the engagement, because digital also throws you open architecture. It means the customer stickiness is a larger challenge. After acquiring a customer doesn't belong to you if you're unable to engage customer with a relevant solution. That's where the collaboration comes into the place by providing relevant solution at your platform itself. So pretty interesting story, Amol, I see, and very great future for India for across BFSI sector. Because penetration as a country across insurance, mutual fund, though we talk about 40 lakh crore as a number, 11,500 crore mutual fund SIP coming through. Retail itself is holding the markets. If the retail SIP, the kind of numbers would have not come, market would have tanked by the significant number. So very interesting times.
Sure, Mr. Bhardwaj. Mr. Balakrishnan?
Yeah, so I'll just give a statistic out here and it could be a banking, relevant statistic, but just it's the same for every segment of the financial services industry, right? So if you look at, a savings account which is opened digitally, it's only about, say, on other non-banking platforms, it's probably about 5%. Now that is supposed to grow to 25%, and this is just percentage change in the next 5 years, right? FY26. Now, likewise, if you just replace the word banking with the market in front of you, Mr. Bhardwaj spoke about only 4% penetration in broking. Likewise, I'm sure Mr. Archit has the detail on how many people are actually filling up taxes in India. And again, Mr. We have the general insurance market, Mr. Vijay, also looking at a huge explosion, right? As IoT and whole lot of wearable devices and all of those kick in, the amount of data which is going to be generated is going to be huge. Now, along with that data, the opportunities are immense. The opportunities of a platform only make it even more probable in terms of huge business growth, exponential business growth, but it also comes with its own risks. And one of the risks obviously is the risk of fraud, right? And when you look at the right area where AI ML needs to be deployed, and I'm sure there are a lot of AI ML models which are already deployed, is obviously one, keeping the customer happy, keeping the customer engaged, keeping the customer giving a real lifetime value, is about the fraud and how do we prevent fraud. So one is detection and the second is prevention. So if you can prevent those frauds in real time, and if your AI models are already up to speed on that one, that means that you have a business which you can run on the premise, on the fundamentals of good governance, on the fundamentals of great fraud prevention and compliance to the regulatory needs, right? Because regulatory needs also are very important in each of the industries which are represented today. So when you look at the AI models which are available from the cloud providers, a few of the cloud providers have access to huge amounts of data, and based out of which the models are already there. So you don't need to spend time in inventing an AI ML model or putting the data set through that. And then, yes, there will always be second, third levels of iteration. But to start with, your AI ML journey around the area of risk and fraud, I think is a huge step forward and can really crunch the challenges ahead in terms of the risk which is available. So I just want to leave that with the pretext that there are solutions available on that, which will only help all your businesses be in greater shape and lead us to all prosperous futures.
Sure. Mr. Gupta, your words.
Right. So I think like as I look forward in like the next 5 years, right? Like there is a massive tailwind, and a lot of it in the BFSI sector got driven by UPI, because like even if you look at the brokerage participation, like the new investors coming in with UPI, right? Like so the first came payments is like when we are thinking about like the world, right? First came payments, then now that has enabled transactions to be digital in a very seamless manner. And after that, as multiple folks on the panel said, the behavior change will also come with along with it. We are seeing like the entire banking industry right now, like very interestingly, like divided into two camps. One are like in our mind very digital first banks, which are then collaborating with fintechs very deeply. I think the insurance sector is like coming around, but like I think the new age insurtech companies are directly API first. So our sense is like the entire ecosystem will shift massively, and in 5 years we will be saying every bank has an API. Every BFSI component will have an API. So that to me is like the basic shape of like how everything will evolve. Like everybody will have an API. Second is then it will become like how do fintechs use these APIs to create customer experiences or like business models which are relevant for customers in India. So my sense is right, everybody will be forced to either provide or open up their platform in the with a set of few APIs or more APIs and what have you. Some will be regulatorily pushed, like in the case of UPI Open, there's regulatory push, plus there is massive customer adoption. Account aggregator ecosystems are coming. We are seeing this in the form of invoices, taxes. We've already seen. We are seeing this in the launch of multiple platforms. ONDC was also mentioned by the esteemed panel. So overall, like the entire BFSI ecosystem will be available as APIs on a common platform. So our sense is like there'll be a lot of apps, a lot of platforms which will get built over the next 4 or 5 years very rapidly, and it will be like what we are seeing is all the way from manufacturing to technology enablers to cloud platforms to AI companies. Multiple things will start emerging. So and we are also seeing infrastructure companies enabling tech infrastructure companies. What I mean by that is literally people building blocks for card issuance, people building block for like everything in the BFSI sector. So like our thesis on this is customer ownership will become important because all customer experiences will be very easy to build given all this API ecosystem. So the next 4 or 5 years of BFSI will and fintechs will look very different from the last 10 years of, because any founder, any team which will get started will have a very different starting point where they can, as long as they can deal with the regulatory climate, like there may be necessary approvals from IIT or SEBI or what have you. Other than that, where the regulator will maybe create new licenses, there's a talk of digital neobanks and what have you. Other than that, like technologically, everything will be on tap. So because cloud went on tap a while ago, AI is now going on tap. Like from a BFSI perspective, everything will be on tap. So that is what the founders have to imagine, or the fintech ecosystem has to imagine. That is our view of the world. Like everything will be on tap. There'll be regulatory, we have seen in payments, for example, as we are getting into it, the regularly you may need a license, PAPG, or like a SEBI license for running a brokerage or what have you. But other than that, like the entire ecosystem will become on tap. Maybe even the regulator will offer new licenses for this ecosystem. So that is our view of the world. Like everything will, like BFSI, like today, there are certain banks which get away with not having APIs, insurers which get away with not having APIs and what have you. After a while, all this will change.
Meaningful one, Mr. Gupta, and I think very well articulated by all of you in terms of not only how the BFSI companies are using platforms, how are they going to use it, and how it will add a greater value to the BFSI ecosystem. The time is limited here, but I think we discussed it for 45 to 50 minutes, and I'm sure the audience must have enjoyed it a lot. Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar, Mr. Bhardwaj, Mr. Balakrishnan, and Mr. Gupta for sharing remarkable insights on expanding with BFSI ecosystem, how the platform can be expanded with BFSI ecosystem. Thank you so much.